Good afternoon. The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 6 territory in Métis Nation Region Number 4. These are the traditional territories and ancestral lands of the indigenous peoples, including the Plain Cree First Nations, Assiniboine, Winnemucca, Rocky Mountain First Nations, Stoney, Tsuut'ina, Nakota, Dene Sulin, Salto, Mountain Maid, Mechief, and many other communities that continue to enrich the land on which the town of Hinton was established.
Okay, no, I think you got it. Thanks, Debbie.
Call this meeting to order at 3:33. Council, any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'd like to add in camera tonight, the potential development in the Bhutan land.
Okay, so that would be the third item in closed session or second. Where would you like to place that if that were to be accepted?
Well, I think we can do it at the end of the meeting.
Okay, so last.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be third in closed session. Council, any other additions or deletions? Administration?
Nothing from administration, thank you.
Thank you, CEO Howard. With that, Councillor Hawes?
I'd like to move that we accept the amended regular council agenda for January 18th, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Stashik?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to know if Councillor Taylor's proposed addition is an urgent matter, or what's the reasoning for having that added to today's agenda without any notice?
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor?
That's the item that came to us before Christmas on the Bhutan lands, and it's another person interested in doing something on the Bhutan lands, and they sent that to the agenda committee. I didn't hear anything from it, and it's really just a 15 or 10 minute discussion on that item to see what we want to do about it. It's not like a detailed discussion.
Councillor Stashik?
Yeah, if I can follow up. Yeah, I've voiced this many times in the past that I don't like when agenda items are brought forward at the meeting to get added to the agenda with no information, no history, no background. Our procedure bylaw has a process that defines how stuff is to be added to potential agendas. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. I'd prefer it go through the process if it's not an urgent matter.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. I'll do a follow-up with Councillor Taylor. Is this urgent, or would this be doable next week?
Yeah, it can go. It can go next week. Sure.
So my preference, if that's the will of council, if you could send a follow-up email, perhaps with council, then we can add it to the agenda tomorrow. Councillor Magoon and myself, I'd have no problem adding it. But for this week, let's get through this. If there's nothing.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. It's just that I had sent it to the agenda committee and I hadn't heard anything for a month, so that's why I brought it up again.
Perfect. Okay,
but I can do that again if that's what you prefer.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hawes, any appetite in withdrawing your motion?
I will withdraw.
Okay, motion to withdraw. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion withdrawn. Council, I'll entertain another motion. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that we adopt the regular meeting of council agenda for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a motion to adopt the agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our closed session item. I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to move that we go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. We will be right back.
All right, looks like we have Ms. Weber on now. Thank you. Sorry, we probably just switching rooms and getting everybody back into this session. My apologies for that, and Ms. Bowden as well. So, go ahead.
Well, thank you, CEO Howard, through to the chair, to all of council. I missed everything before that moment. I apologize for that. I didn't have any sound on our end. The Hinton Golfing Society is requesting that the town of Hinton co-sign, I'm just going to push this out, co-sign a lease agreement for 60 new golf carts for the 2022 golf season. It's been identified by the Golfing Society that the current golf carts require significant repair and maintenance and are deemed not fit for use for the 2022 golf season. The current golf cart lease expires in August of 2022 and was not part of the operating agreement between the town and the society, which is now expired. The report before you contains the details of the financial implications to the town of Hinton, as provided by CWB National Leasing, for council's review and direction to administration today. The implications of co-signing the lease agreement comes into effect in the event that the society declines to operate our golf course, the society is not able to make the monthly lease payment, or if the society were to dissolve. At present, the costs associated with the lease agreement are unbudgeted in the 2022 operational budget for the town of Hinton. To facilitate the discussion today, I would like to introduce two members of the Hinton Golfing Society, Mr. Brad Kopp, the president, and Mr. Kyle Crawford, the general manager. They are here to help answer any questions council may have. I would like to turn it over to council for any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Stashik?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my apologies, I had thought administration was already on, and I'd asked a question that was regarding the administrative fees for cancellation of the contract. My understanding is there's an administrative penalty of between $500 and $1,500 for cancellation. I'm just wondering how long that window is open for, because I'm assuming at some point cancellation won't be possible because the carts would be en route. And also, if I could get an explanation of what the variability is between 500 and 1,500. Thank you.
Thank you for the question through the chair to Councillor Stashik. I would like to ask Ms. Bowden if she has a response for that, having spoken to the leasing company specifically.
I apologize. I was trying to make my my system work. Could you repeat the question, please?
May, Mr. Mayor. So there's the report indicates that there is an administrative penalty for cancellation of the new cart rental contract, and that penalty is somewhere in the range of $500 to $1,500. I'm just wondering how long that administrative penalty for cancellation is open for. In other words, there must be a drop dead date of some point where it's no longer possible to cancel the contract. If so, I'd like to know what that date is. And I'd also like a better understanding of what the variability is between $500 and $1,500. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I did not discuss the penalties with him when I talked to him. I was more focused on getting a clear understanding of what the total lease costs were going to be, but we can certainly reach out to him and ask him that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. What I'll do is I'll go to thank you, Mr. Crawford and Mr. Kopp, for being here. Do you have any information or any comments to provide council as we're dealing with this from last week to this week? If you can please introduce yourself for people who are watching, just in case, if that's okay.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. Mayor Michaels and council. Thank you for the invitation to attend tonight's meeting. My name's Brad Kopp. I'm the president of the Hinton Golfing Society, and I'd like to introduce you to Kyle Crawford. He's the society's general manager and the director of golf operations. So I think I watched the meeting last week, and what I wanted to do was just kind of bring things back to ground zero here. I've got some high level comments about the golf course, and then we can get into the cart lease. But I think since we're here, let me just go through little bit of an introduction. So after I watched the council meeting last week, the first thing that I would like to do is put your minds at ease over our willingness to operate the golf course in 2022. The Hinton Golfing Society's intention is to operate the facility. And not only is it our intention, it's also evident in our current daily actions. So as long as the town is in agreement, that's our plan, and that's the end of that story. It was reported last week that we had not yet signed the operating agreement. However, I guess since it was delivered to us in October, we've been working diligently with the town on the cart lease, on financial reporting, and on preparing for the upcoming season. So in addition to that, we've been planning our league play, we've been selling memberships, we've been doing steady marketing and advertising. And since October, we've been operating the restaurant, we've been hosting Christmas parties and events, been operating the golf simulator, and we built one of the best outdoor skating rinks in town on the pond outside the clubhouse. And this is an effort to bring people up to the property, give them a great recreational opportunity, and to get people to our facility and into the restaurant. So the operating agreement and our ability to operate the facility properly in 2022 hinges on golf carts and a golf cart lease. So hopefully that can be settled soon with your approval. But I just wanted to set the record straight that if there's some uncertainty there, it's misled. I've had a number of conversations with elected officials, since October, and thank you to those who have taken the time to reach out to me. In addition, Kyle's been working closely with admin, and I believe anyone who's had dealings with me or Kyle knows that our goal is to have a successful year in 2022, and for that matter, beyond. And we want to operate this very important and valuable asset on behalf of the town. So the second thing I'd like to do is just, in particular on behalf of our members, but also on behalf of guests and casual local golfers who may not be members, is to say thank you. It's no secret that we wouldn't have the opportunity to operate a golf course without the town's support for the last number of years. We believe that golf is a cornerstone of recreational and leisure offerings in Hinton. The club has been around since the 1960s, and that's almost since the town's inception. And for your reference, the HGC had a total of 246 members in 2021. Over and above that, during that season, just this past season, we tracked another 3,900 individuals who used the facility at least once. And a total of 18,000 rounds of golf were played in Hinton last year. I'd also point out that much of the construction and even current maintenance of the club has been carried out by volunteers from our membership. In the beginning, people like Lorraine Keel, Wally Higgins, Jim Bowersock, Mayor Bill Switzer, and Father Redmond were involved. And more recently, the likes of Gino Caputo, Ann Scobie, Howard Nowicki, Glenn Allen, Dan Labarge, Ryan Minnick, Robert and Denise Boutin, and countless others have invested hours, dollars, and their equipment into the development and maintenance of the course as you see it today. In fact, Councillor Ostashik lent us some trailers last year to haul gravel out onto the golf course to repair our paths. The point is that the golf course has deep roots in the community, and we don't want to ever see that compromised. So on behalf of the society, members and guests, I'd like to express our appreciation for council's support to date. Currently, we have a phenomenal group of people on our board of directors, and I'd just like to mention each of them to give council an idea of who's involved as volunteer leaders. Sienna Dallaire is our vice president and secretary. Karen Durand is our treasurer. And the other directors are Robin Hengel, Dr. Andrea Ron, Daryl Kwasny, Sandra Roberts, and Larry Bowersock. And the final point that I'd like to make before I turn it over to Kyle is that golf is a tough business to be in. The day-to-day operations are demanding. Alberta summers have unpredictable weather, and maintenance, equipment, management, inventory, pro shop staff, and a grounds crew are not inexpensive when you add everything up. Margins are razor thin at the best of times. I thought it would be worthwhile to just explain a couple cost-saving measures that we've implemented in recent years for your information. Firstly, we've hired Kyle, who fills two key roles, namely general manager and head golf professional. At many courses, these are two separate positions, and that was the case in Hinton until recently. So Kyle, for the record, also fills a number of other roles, including overseeing the food and beverage, the pro shop, event planning, DJ, shovels the pond when we need it shoveled for the skating rink. I think his job description is manage the golf operation and other duties as assigned, and he does them all. In addition, in the last 2 summers, mid-season, we've had key pieces of maintenance equipment go down. 2 summers ago, it was a sprayer, chemical sprayer. This last year, a rough mower. And the golf course midsummer needs to be attended to daily. Like there's not a lot of time to hash over a decision to replace a rough mower, let's say. So in both of those cases, Kyle was able to source out very reasonable pieces of used equipment from his contacts within the industry. We didn't miss a real beat in either case, and we saved tens of thousands of dollars along the way. We also implemented an automated online booking system, which allows us to have reduced man hours in the pro shop. And we upgraded our driving range system to ensure that the club isn't losing money on the driving range, which is a traditional loss leader at many golf courses. We've trimmed and we've cut in all the areas that it's made sense, and we've invested in areas where we feel like we'll see a return. And an example would be a small pro shop renovation last year. And now hopefully this new fleet of golf carts this season. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle, and he can answer more specifics on the golf lease, or on the golf cart lease, and why the direction makes sense, at least to us.
Thanks, Brad. So in terms of the golf cart leases, normally carts run on a 4-year lease agreement. Back in 2019, when I wasn't here, they deferred 6 payments. When I started, COVID hit. We were directed by town and worked closely with the town to defer another 3 payments of that cart lease, basically extending the life of these golf carts so they're way past the point of basically putting any type of money into them. They should have been replaced last year, but the society has done a great job at maintaining that fleet so that we were able to get a little bit of an extension out of those golf carts, which is great. There's about $102,000 remaining on the current lease, which is basically just over, about 5 payments. That's integrated into this new lease. So as you can see, did everybody get that lease? So obviously the total is $600,000 to be financed. We were able to negotiate a return on our current golf cart fleet to get about $3,000 per golf cart. Originally, we were offered around $2,200, but Club Car stepped up and gave us that $180,000. So the society is actually putting $120,000 into this new lease, or these assets of these new golf carts. The $60,000 trade payout that you see, that is because the delivery date is not confirmed. So what Club Car did with CWB Leasing is they took this $102,000 total and said, hey, you're probably not going to get your carts right away. You're going to make your existing payments on your old fleet, which is what they're estimating right now is going to be about $60,000. I worked it out. I think it's going to be about $65,000 that'll be left. That's a 3-month delay on the carts, just because this process has taken a little bit longer than planned. After that 36-month or 36 total payments, there's a residual value left in each golf cart of $2,500 per cart. We did go to CWB Leasing and try to get a higher residual of $4,000, just on the term that the society only has 1-year agreements. And I thought, well, if they're not going to maintain the golf course, then we might as well get less monthly payments. But they turned that down. So now we're back to the $2,500 residual in that cart. So we are going to be, these carts can last 8 years is what Club Car is telling. I would think they last even longer, because this is the first lithium golf cart that they've created. Most of these carts last 4 years. So these are going to be an 8-year cart, if not longer. the amount of rounds that we do at 18,000, we should get 9 to 10 years out of this fleet. So our monthly last year for the cart payments was 12,372 per month on a 6 on, 6 off schedule. 12,372 and 66 cents. Our new cart lease that we're hoping to do is going to be a 15,615 and 36 cents. And again, that's a 6 on, 6 off plan. We have increased the daily fee on our golf carts to compensate the difference from the 12,372 to the 15,615. So we hope by raising it $1, that we're gonna get that money back, because we did sell about 15,000 half-seat power carts last year. So if we up that $1, there's 15 grand if we just keep it status quo. That's basically all I got for the cart lease.
Councillor Stashik and Councillor Lubert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It indicated that these carts should last 9 or 10 years, correct? This is a 4-year lease?
This is 72 months.
6-year lease. Okay, so there's still some residual life left in those carts at the termination of the lease. So what's the intended use of those carts when we get to end of lease?
Well, with these new batteries, it'd be probably the way to go is to actually finance that 150,000 in year 7. Where these golf carts aren't worth doing the buyout option because it's just going to get us an extra year. And what we have proposed is that half the fleet needs fixed. So that's about $56,000 for 30 carts to be fixed. We could have 50 go down this year. We don't know that yet, but we know 30 are going to need all new batteries and some other things as well.
Can I follow up? So, sorry, you were saying, so probably the intent would be to exercise the buyout option to purchase this fleet of 60 carts from the leasing company for $2,500 each and continue to use them for 3-4 years more.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Lubert.
And so the primary difference then, as I'm listening, is to clarify battery base.
Correct.
Like the real cost of this current fleet is just the batteries and all that.
Correct. It's roughly $1,700 to $1,800 per cart to replace the batteries.
Councillor Lubert. Councillor Magoo.
Yeah, I have a question on the recommended action we're seeing before us is that council direct administration to bring the golf cart status and proposed leasing options, including the financing options, as a request for decision to the regular meeting of council on March 1st, 2022. And for me, that's sort of I guess I was worried because I was worried about how that would impact timelines revolving around operations. Getting the deals sort of like, to me, I would have thought or assumed that this is one of those things where it's like, okay, we sort of need to get the ball rolling on this sooner rather than later. From an operational status. I guess my question for you is, what's your thoughts on this?
So we reached out to administration back in first couple weeks of October, just on the knowing fact that the supply chains to build these golf carts, usually was kind of into that 4 to 5 month time frame. Now it's been, you're possibly looking at 6 to 9 month time frame to get these built. So we are a little behind schedule, and our carts are definitely not going to arrive the first day of golf. But so I went back to Club Car and I said, well, this isn't going to work. Like, we might as well not do this if we have to put money back into our old fleet. So Club Car came back to us and said, hey, we're willing to replace all the batteries in your existing carts. And what they're going to do is they're going to now try to sell them at a higher trade value. So we got 3,000. You probably see them on the market for now 45 to 5,000 because they're going to be putting that $1,700 to $1,800 into that golf cart for us, solely to get us into this new lease agreement.
So can I follow up, Mr. Mayor? So what's the impact to you guys from an operating standpoint if council doesn't make a decision on this until at the least March the 1st.
It's just pushing the timeline of the delivery of the golf carts to later in the season.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I go to Councilor Race, I wanted to follow up on that. Is my understanding correct? Now, if they're gonna broker that, put new batteries in and kind of get us through the 22 season on condition that if we do a 6-year lease, then will the new lease get us through the next 6 seasons, which would be 23 through 28? And then at the end of the 28th season, we would have the option of 150,000 to purchase or then do something else. Is that the understanding that we're gaining a season with kind of the proposal or the idea that you're explaining?
Well, the lease structure doesn't kick in until the delivery of the golf carts, right? So if that doesn't happen until July or August, well, that's when it's gonna actually kick in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I have to say, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed listening to what you have done. And what I'm about to say, I apologize if I sound harsh.
No worries.
I do. But what concerns me is we don't have an operating agreement with you. Does that concern you? That's
Yeah,
my
I
first
think
question.
the wording in your last meeting was the cart was before the horse, and we're looking at it almost the same way. In order to operate this golf course properly and enter into an operating agreement, we need to have some certainty on golf carts. And at this point right now, we don't have certainty on golf carts, so we can't really make a good statement that we're gonna operate the golf course. So, I mean, I don't want to belabor it. It is what it is. It's taken longer to get to this point than anyone would have liked. I guess all I can tell you, Councilor Race and the rest of the council is our intention is to operate the golf course, and we hope that we can get a new lease and an operating agreement done whenever you guys are ready.
So another thing is the financials. That's something we needed to see. Unaudited, audited.
So they came to you on December the 7th. That was discussed last week a couple times in your meeting. They've been presented to council as far as I know.
Not the audited ones, just
but our unaudited financials, and they are being audited now, I believe, by.
Yeah, I just talked to Altitude this morning. We're just working on a couple issues, but other than that, it's probably within weeks, a couple weeks.
If you have others in queue, I would like to be put back in. Thank you.
I just want to elaborate for clarity. If there's a lease agreement for the carts, the society is willing to sign the operating agreement like as soon as possible, or is there something else major that would be holding it up, or is this really the thing that's holding it back?
No, it is.
I have Councilor Hawes, LaBerge, Magoon, Race, Taylor.
Hi, guys. I just have a quick question, trying to wrap my head around. So the previous number is the $74,235.96 that's left over in the that's not what it is.
Well,
okay. Because there's that
I read the administration's report, and that number doesn't line up with what we have.
Okay, because that's what I'm trying to wrap my head, because what I'm looking at is your presentation attachment number 1, and it said cart lease 2021 at that figure, and then the new cart lease 2022 at 93,692.16. So I'm trying to wrap my head around those numbers and trying to understand what those mean.
So the 93 number is the projected cost that we're budgeting for in the 2022 season.
Okay. Okay.
The 73 or 102, which is the number that we have, is the buyout on the current lease.
Okay. So on that, so what I heard you say, and I think that, and that's why I just want to clarify, that buyout is being absorbed into the new lease. Okay. So this, I'm trying to think, like, what is the cost to our community as a town? Like, do we have to cut a check or anything, or someone to do, but that's being absorbed into the new lease? Is
Correct.
That's the
There's no cost.
Okay. And that's fair. There's a lot of numbers floating around, and I'm trying to wrap my head around them. So currently at this time, every year you'll be the new lease at 2022 will be 93,692 or
That's
whatever,
correct.
for payments of that.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that's, okay, that helps, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor LaBerge.
So then for clarity, if we move forward with the old carts, we're looking at about $60,000 for the battery.
Minimum.
Check's gotta be written for that.
Yeah.
And then in August, there's a $102,000 buyout. So we're looking at.
Well, we'll be a little bit less.
$60-some thousand to have the old carts in place on September 1st.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. The council, that condition upon execution of an operating agreement with the Hinton Golfing Society. That on the condition, on the condition that an operating agreement is signed with the Hinton Golfing Society. That council directs administration move forward with the proposed lease agreement for the golf carts.
Carts.
Oh, no, carts, sorry.
Well,
Carts.
Yes. And can I speak to that, please? I mean, it seems to me that golfing's it's an experience thing. And the cart's part of that experience. And we can sort of, I guess, binder, twine, and tape this thing together and end up writing a bunch more checks, or we can make what I think is a relatively, and this is a security-based investment into this operating business. There are no checks to be written. There is an obligation, but I can't imagine another operator coming in and saying the old carts are good at this point. And I understand that there's additional risk with taking on the lease, but I think there's additional risks in not doing it. And the additional cost, I worked it out in my head, to be around $3,300 a month, so we're talking about $15,000 a season. In the additional cost of that lease, as Kyle indicated, would be covered with the $1 increase in access to the carts. And I mean, when I take a look at it last year, the one thing that these guys did well, and I mean that platonically, that this group did well, is operate the golf course. I think this is an important part of operating the golf course, and delaying this till March 1st, not getting the carts until sometime next winter, it just, I don't understand why that serves any purpose at this point. So that's why I made the motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor LeBarge. Council, we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to go through the list that I had previously. If you don't want to speak to the current motion, then just indicate that. Councilor Magoon, Taylor, Race, Eustachian.
No, I'll withdraw for now, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Taylor?
Can you speak a little more to the old carts, like why they're falling apart? Are they, how old are they? 4 years? It sounds like they're
They're-
5 or 6.
They're 2017s. We don't know exactly if they were used prior to coming. That whole prior lease, I couldn't really speak on that, but the traditional golf cart only lasts 4 years. That's why all leasing is always 4 years. It's not till these recent carts that have the lithium battery that now they're offering 6-year leases because they're lasting that long. So these are by far overdue. The shells on the golf cart are fairly good because the society has done a really good job at maintaining them. It's just the guts of them. They're just worn out.
And my other question would be, this is like $3,000 more a month for these new carts. And my understanding is not like Councilor LaBarge's, that $1 increase gets you $10,000 over the season. So that covers part of it. The other extra was going to come from the advertising and the food ordering. Can you speak to how solid those estimates are?
So we're planning on about $18,000 in advertising revenue that are going into, that we'll be able to advertise a company on the golf cart fleet. Are we going to be able to sell all 18? I'm not too sure. We definitely budgeted for 18. Right now we've kind of sold 3. But again, we're not out there selling it because we didn't know whether or not we're even getting these. So, once the approval goes through, this is where you're going to start seeing the revenues from these new fleets start to build up. And we do think that we are going to create more of a spend on the food and beverage side as the golf carts have GPS in them. And basically when you order your food, we just need a delivery person to deliver that, drinks or food right to your hole. Before you needed, call it a couple beverage cart girls or guys. And now we can limit that back. So we're saving on staffing on the food and beverage side. We're also saving on the maintenance side because every 2 weeks you have to fill up the current cart with filtered water to keep those batteries topped off. We spend, roughly $300 to $600 every 2 weeks just maintaining the water levels in the batteries. These new batteries have no water. They're maintenance free. I know I got off a little off topic for you, but that's.
Councilor Taylor?
That's fine. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Race, then Councilor Eustachian.
Thank you, sir. Some of my questions were pertaining to prior to your motion. This one here. So what I'm hearing you say is the operating lease agreement has been delayed almost deliberately until council approves this golf cart lease. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say deliberately, but we definitely thought that this was a huge portion of the operating agreement to make sure that the society is covered on their end, and moving forward, it's just always been in the operating agreement. So we didn't want to sign anything and then be on the hook for $60,000 in repairs, and then who knows where that hole can go, right? So that was the idea. It wasn't that we didn't want to. Everything looked fine. We just wanted to add this into the agreement, especially when it comes to the society only having 1-year agreements. If you guys decide to, choose a different proponent, that lease has to get transferred over to that new proponent, so that the Hinton Golfing Society is kind of off the hook.
And you know what, this is very important to me because I did not know that there was some hesitancy on your part in signing a lease agreement. Did not know that. And one other, if I may, and I don't know how much this pertains. Do you, and I hope this is not an unfair question, Do you feel maybe having a council representative on your committee would benefit both sides?
100%. Yeah, we had Counselor Magoon, right, kind of, I think he was even in the hiring process of myself. I saw huge amounts of value, what Magoon brought to the table. I'm not too sure the finer details of why that transitioned him out, but I would be 100% for that.
May I be allowed one more, sir? And this is to administration. Are you satisfied with the financials that you have received so far from the Hinton Golf Society?
Administration?
Weber?
Thank you through CAO Howard, through to the chair, to Councillor Rice. We have received the financials as requested and as per the operating agreement in terms of getting the year-end financials. And I know that our Director of Finance was in discussion with Mr. Crawford about receiving monthly or quarterly financials, and that arrangement was talked about very openly and constructively. Yeah. I know we are also waiting for the audited financials, but at present we have received everything we've been requesting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, administration and Councillor Race. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a very quick question for administration and then a comment, if I may. Administration, I'm just wondering if there was a reason for recommending that this come back to regular on March 1st rather than a decision today.
Administration. Ms. Weber?
Thank you through the chair to Councillor Stashik. I believe it was just to be conservative and cautious, to provide the opportunity to review other options for leasing or other cart alternatives that may be of less cost overall, and bring that information back to council for March 1st. That was the intention of administration.
Thank you. And if I could comment then, I appreciate Councillor LaBerge adding the condition that there needs to be a signed operating agreement in place before the town enters into a partnership to backstop this lease agreement. I'm a little bit concerned in what I heard here tonight that one of the reasons that operating agreement has potentially not been returned back to the town signed is because it was hinging on this golf cart lease agreement, which is a little bit disappointing to me, and I don't feel as fully negotiating and discussing these things in good faith. I think if this is going to be a mutually beneficial ongoing partnership, there needs to be honesty back and forth. And the fact that this is critical to Hinton Golfing Society's ability to supply golf in Hinton is not something that I was aware of. I was wondering why that operating agreement hadn't been signed and returned. Moving forward, I would certainly like, if there's a need, a want, a requirement on the part of the Hinton Golfing Society, that be communicated openly and honestly so we understand the challenges that the Golfing Society is facing. And I, as a councillor, I'm happy to reciprocate with that so the Golfing Society understands the challenges and concerns that council has in this partnership moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Magoon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to comment on some of the concerns echoed by my colleague, Councillor Stashik. I think, again, what that does, though, is that reemphasizes the importance of having a direct line of communication between council and the board, and this is something I've spoken to in open chambers before. It's valuable because it ensures that the information that does need to get to council is flowing up to council. So it just emphasizes that, in my opinion. I guess my question from an operating point, because it directly impacts how I would vote for the direction that's on the table. I can only assume that it's the hope of the society to enter into a more structured long-term agreement as we move forward. That certainly would be my hope. I know the society has a very long history in the town, reaching back a very long way. of operating a course. So I guess really, I don't want to preface it too much, but that's my understanding of things, and that would be my hope is, gentlemen, can you speak to that at all?
Thanks, Councillor Magoon. Absolutely. I mean, we don't plan on going anywhere. We're certainly, we're navigating new territory here too. And I guess just to Councillor Stashik's point, like our intention was never to be underhanded or drag things out unneededly or you know, use the operating agreement up. Like we've had several different contact points with the town. We're trying to get the golf course put to bed in October. Like there's a lot of moving parts for us, and we're just learning our way through being a civic agency, if you will. So I apologize if that was the, you know, the way it came across, but we're learning our way here too. So our intention is to continue to operate. We fully intend on operating in 2022. If there was any doubt about that, I don't think we would have been doing the things we've been doing up until this point. So, you know, my apologies as president for that being left up in the air. It does hinge on the cart lease. So, you know, I hope we can move forward. And then I just want to, you know, make that clear that it wasn't a tactic that I was deliberately using or anything like that.
Mr. Mayor, may I sum up my thoughts on the direction on the table? And I don't want to take credit for this thought. Councillor Labarge in discussion previous to this had mentioned, I think, again, a complicating factor is the fact that we're dealing with a board and an active society of really volunteers, the people who are very active in the operations of the course. And I want to continue to support that. So I'm moving forward. I'll be very positively looking at supporting the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Councillor Hawes?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just speaking to the motion, I'll be in favor of this. You know, I think some information came to light this evening that was very important to have. I think I was the one that said the cart before the horse in the meeting, and you know, in hindsight, it seems that way, but I appreciate the explanation on your part too. And I think that was the gap that has been rectified this evening to understand both parties and stuff. So I think, yeah, just having some more open communication, I guess, between the board and the council and administration to learn these things. So, and then so I'm going to speak in favor of this. I mean, they're moving forward. It sounds like it's a better, maybe more money, but a better deal for the golf course, the town, everything, for the longevity of it with the product that you're going for. You know, and I guess, in a way, it'd be nice to see some other options, but I mean, I don't want to delay the process even further. And the fact that we can get 2 or 3 more years out of them is favorable for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. For myself, I'll speak in favor of this motion for many reasons. One, there is more risk. I agree with Councillor LeBerge. There's more risk of not doing this. To me, this is an asset. If we believe in golf, this is the smart thing to do for golf. If we don't believe in golf, or we feel we may want to pivot, absolutely, by any means, let's have that discussion. But I believe we need golf in our community, and I believe in the partnership we have. And for myself, I think there's no apology needed. I think there are many avenues or many variables that cause this. You know, the board was told many times to just wait as council is deliberating other things regarding the golf course. So there was many things in place. So for me, no apology needed for me, but I appreciate that in the sense that these are volunteers who are trying to make this work with the albatross of a decision from 2010 of purchasing a $2 million clubhouse and many other factors in this. And to me, this is a smart business decision. It's an asset, and it'll assure that the services of the golf course for the next 6 years are at a high level. I'm looking forward to a great 2022 and other years. And I appreciate the time, effort, and patience that every individual that you named earlier giving to this, again, as volunteers in our community. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to this partnership continuing. I have Councillor LeBerge and Councillor Race.
Now, obviously, I'm in support of it, but I want to say that this is not an entrepreneurial organization. And those dates are important, and I think they need to be respected. And in the creation of a partnership and a relationship, that's super important.
Thank you, Councilor LeBerge. Councilor Race and Councilor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too will speak in favor of this, but I want to tell you why. I have committed to the citizens of Hinton. I've said to them, I'm not going to be part of taking golf away from you. Hinton and golf go together. But I'll tell you, I can't stress enough the importance of making sure that all of council is aware of any concerns that you guys have, because you've opened my eyes up to things that I wasn't privy to, I didn't know about. And when we're making a decision as important as this, we need to know what's going on. So we have other decisions to make, but I will support this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Race. Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, golf's important to Hinton, and people come here or make decisions on whether to come here because there's a golf course. My concern with this is the liability of $700,000. And I think that's minimized at least in two ways. One is that you've been looking after a golf course for 60 years, probably another 20 maybe or whatever. And the other way it's going to be minimized is I'm probably going to push for a longer term agreement. So there's more that'll help as well. I think those will help minimize that $700,000 potential liability. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Council, any further questions, debate, comments? Seeing none. I'll call to question that on the condition that an operating agreement is signed by the Hinton Golfing Society, that council direct administration to move forward with the proposed leased agreement with the golf carts. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item before I let Mr. Crawford and Mr. Kopp go home for supper? Oh, Councilor Taylor.
What do you mean let them go home for supper? I thought we were talking about the agreement. Aren't they going to be here for that?
I'm not sure I understand your.
Oh, aren't we, I'm sorry, maybe I said I haven't had a coffee. Aren't we talking about the golf course agreement next?
And you're going to be part of that?
It's entirely up to you.
Okay, great, thanks. You're not going home, thank you.
Okay, council, that'll bring us to our information item for this evening, the Hinton Golfing Society Operating Agreement. CO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to council. So my apologies on the last item. I was working off the direction that council had given last week to administration to bring forward the 2022 operating agreement, which you have in your package, the unaudited financial statements, which you have in your package, and for us to invite the society president and director of operations to assist in updating council. So I was going to introduce them now, so welcome. So yes, this was the item that I had assumed council was inviting them, of course, to attend to. So I won't belabor it. You have it in front of you. It's an information item. Hopefully it's provides you with the information you were seeking and in support of your other items. So if there's any questions of council, again, I have Ms. Weber here and our friends here from the golf course.
Thank you, CO Howard. Councilor Magoon.
Yeah, just a question procedurally, and if it was in the report and I missed it, I really apologize. Just from an actual signing perspective, because this is an information item before us tonight, is there action required on behalf of council to renew that agreement on behalf of council, or does administration have the ability simply to renew the agreement? And I apologize if I missed that. I feel like there is something I missed, but I just need clarification there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to Councilor Magoon. So because we're in the process of negotiating this, we're not bringing it to you saying both parties have agreed to this and now we're putting a bow on it. We're just demonstrating the last version we had given the group, and we heard earlier this evening under the other matter that it looked fine, but that's we haven't spent time negotiating this back and forth, so we're not looking for direction from council to approve the agreement as presented.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Councilor Goon. Councilor Taylor.
Can I talk about the agreement now? Yeah, I'd like a few things. One would be maybe that it's for 4 years. Thinking the long-term agreement with a society that's looked after the golf course since 1962, 60 years is not much of a risk. And there are clauses in here where we can get out anyways. Which we might want to talk about anyways. The only two other things I would want to sort of think about putting in there would be if we could at our leisure, or do we need to put this in the agreement that we put a counselor as a non-voting member on the board? Then we have the liberty to do that. And the other clause, I would ask you two what you think about this one. I don't know if it causes you undue financial harm. I wouldn't suggest it, but the payment of the $50,000, is there a cause you harm? Would it be better for you to pay that per month as you go through the summer, while you're making your money, or would it be better for you to wait to I'm saying after the golf season is all over? Or I was wondering if we should put words in the agreement to that effect, but I don't want to cause you your hardship financially, right?
Councillor Taylor, thanks. And I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on the operating agreement. I appreciate the points that you're making. And I think yeah, we've had that conversation as a board, and it would be definitely easier to make installment payments on our debt to the town than it would to be hit with the big bill at the end of the golf season. So that's certainly, we have an appetite to have that conversation, along with others that, I assume myself and Kyle will have with administration in due course, this ASAP.
Councilor Taylor.
Those are my thoughts.
Councilor Goon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and certainly I agree with everything that Councilor Taylor had mentioned. I think in terms of building support back and forth reciprocally through the agreement as well, in order to sort of alleviate some of the concerns of the citizens in the town, something to consider also might be a clause that indicates that the society will give first consideration in their yearly budgeting to those, in this case, as an example, the lease of the golf carts, because that's a direct liability that impacts the citizens and the taxpayers. First, that might be some clause to consider, so that when we go to the public and they say, well, geez, you guys entered into a leasing agreement, and it's quite the liability. If we can go and also say, yeah, but one of our clauses in our operating agreements is that's one of the first things that's going to be paid every month, because the society understands that's something that impacts all of us. I think that might be something that readily gives assurance to our citizens. But again, I'll leave that up to administration and yourselves to consider while they're going through that negotiation process. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Goon. Ms. Weber, did you have your hand up prior? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you through to the chair, to council. I just wanted to mention that previous to this, the golf cart lease was never part of the operating agreement. It was just between the Golf Society and the leasing company. So with this addition, by the wish of council, to include the lease agreement, that would automatically go into the new operating agreement with negotiations back and forth with the Hinton Golfing Society. And I believe that we've already been in discussion with the society about the terms of the payment for the $50,000 loan payment to help ease that lump sum payment at year end. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Council, anything further? Councilor McGinn?
Well, provided there's nothing further from our colleagues, I'd be happy to make a direction to accept this report for information, but I don't want to make that until our colleagues have had a chance.
Councilor Hawes?
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. I guess I just have a quick question about the inventory. because as a council, like if we were to go into budget or anything and go over budget, administration has to come to us. And I guess there's been some voice of concern of the large amount of inventory, the $300,000 mark on that. And I got in the presentation, I realize you're getting into the business, but it seems like an exorbitant amount over budget. And I guess I'm not sure how in the agreement that can somehow be flushed out a little bit, just so, because it does state in the agreement the purchase and sale of inventory of such items in such conditions as the operator, they're owned by the town. And that's a large number, right, in the red. So I'm just not certain on how, or maybe in this, I don't have any solutions or suggestions, but going into the agreement, how can that somehow be flushed out a little bit? So at least, I don't know if if it goes over a certain amount, does it come back to council potentially? I don't know, is it to council or what? But I guess that's just one of the things, or one thing that kind of stands out for me, in regards to that large purchase of inventory. So it's not really a question, just a comment to the society and to administration when they are going into that. That's all. Thank you.
I could answer some of that. So,
Please.
Everybody kind of knows the old design of the golf shop back in 2020.
Mhm.
It basically had a limit on basically what you could purchase because there was only so much display room, right? So revenues would always stay the same. They would never really increase unless you were jacking up your prices. So we thought, okay, what's a long-term strategy here? That is to design the golf shop to sell it, period. So you did see a big lump sum in inventory, but this is the only year you're going to see that was last year. Now all that inventory is we're trying to sell it basically 364 days a year. So now it's going to drop, right? Because you always have that base amount of inventory to get you through Christmas sales and things of that nature. So going forward, now you should really only see it in between the 140 and 170 being the high, because we have that inventory that's just going to keep turning over. When we first started, we didn't even have $17,000 in inventory, and that was $17,000 of stuff that was like 5, 6, 7 years old that basically was a write-off. Now we're treating it just like a store, right? And it's open all year, and it's designed strictly to sell. I don't know if everybody's had the privilege of looking at it, but we're able to display about 30% more pieces in that room to sell.
So are they in the pro shop, because it's to do with clubs, correct?
Correct.
Are they in the pro shop?
Yes.
Okay, because I only asked because I went there at Christmas time and I didn't see a club in sight. I saw a lot of empty bags, but I didn't see a clubs. So I guess that's where I was a little bit confused as well. So maybe it was just I didn't ask. I wasn't
We
sure.
don't have it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. I guess that's where my confusion.
So the financial reports that you're looking at is basically the expense was $270,000, the revenues were $230,000, but it didn't take an effect that we are on a return program for our golf clubs. So we got about $57,000 back to us in December. That's not on the books for 2021, so it looks a lot worse. When you look at this, you're going, oh, they lost quite a bit of money. But that 57,000 should have been, but that was an accounting thing. We asked accountants if we could do it, but they said no, because that payment was made December, I don't know the exact date, it had to go into this year's financials and not last year. But again, the inventory is not the main reason on why the numbers don't look the best. Is at the end of the day, it still made money. Prime sole reason is October crushed us. We stayed open for way too long because the weather was beautiful. And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. And I can tell you right now, it burnt us a lot. And that's what put us in a little bit of a hardship going into this winter. We have members that pressure us, they see no snow and they go, like, why aren't you open? Right? But they don't realize that there's 3 payrolls in October. That's that can hit you, and that's exactly what happened to us, and the revenues didn't cover our costs, basically. So I think I've mentioned to the board, we are gonna look at October very closely and realize that it's a make or break. You don't wanna work all year, make 60 grand and then dump it all back in October, and then struggle all winter like we're doing, right? So the process is gonna change, but I believe everything that we've done has increased revenue. So this is just a time game. The more years that pass, that revenue is just gonna climb in all these areas that we've invested into.
Thank you. Before I go to Councilor LaBerge, because a lot of these things can be addressed in 2022 under section 4.3 of the quarterlies, right? So is the intent for the language in there for you to come to council quarterly, or what does that look like?
We can do whatever you guys want.
So I kind of asked that for council. I don't know if it's quarterly, but I think looking at the proposed budget and then having check-ins 4 times a year, or even if it's twice a year, to kind of catch where some of these expenses are going, we can have that open conversation with the public. And like I said, I might be comfortable with 2 twice a year. That could be a benefit, but the language currently in 4.3 doesn't speak to an actual council meeting. So maybe something to consider. My appetite would be, let's do this twice a year in public where we look at the expenses. Councilor LaBerge.
I'm good, my wife was answering.
Thank you, Councilor LaBerge. Councilor Taylor.
Well, yeah, I wanted to clarify my 90 days for termination comments, just so they're not misinterpreted. Like, I'm a bit concerned with that clause because it doesn't provide the golf course with some of the assurity that you need for things like hiring and that sort of thing. That was what I was trying to get at. So it might be a clause that we look at a bit. I wasn't even trying to suggest that we would use that in any inappropriate fashion, because we've been in business with you for 60 years. It's more of everybody laughed when I said the comment, but it's more of a directing attention to that clause and seeing how we could look at it in the future. It's got to affect your ability to hire like a golf pro or something like that when they know that they've got that clause in there for a long term.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that council accept the Hinton Golf Course operating agreement update for information.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, call to question that council accept the Hinton Golf Course operating agreement update for information. Council, all those in favor? Passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item? Seeing none, now, thank you, Mr. Crawford and Mr. Cobb.
Thank you.
For joining us this evening.
Thank you, council.
Thanks, guys.
You can go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That would bring us
Thank
to
you
our
for coming.
second information item, COVID-19 related security services summary. CEO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to council. This is truly just an information item, a commitment and request from council and a commitment from administration to bring back the reporting on the emergency response reserve. So again, at the beginning of the program, council had supported up to $36,000 to fund the security at the rec center. That program is over as of December 28th. There was just over $36,000 that was not needed, and so that money will remain in the reserve. Mr. Van Claveren here is the author of the report if there's any other questions. But that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, CEO Howard. Council. Councilor Magoon.
I'd like to move the council accept the COVID-19 restrictions exemption program related security services summary report for information.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our council information packages number 2. Any questions or direction? Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we accept council information package number 2 for information and advise administration to contact the individual and say that council is not taking any action on this.
Do you want that to be part of your motion?
Yes,
Okay.
because if we just accept it, then nothing is done. Just wait, that council accept the information package number 2 and request administration contact the individual to let them know we're taking no action on this.
Is that good, Councillor Race?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, we have a motion on the floor. I have Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. I would prefer that request be direct. And also I'd like the individual to be named so it's clear who it's referring to. I believe that's Keith Obrigowicz, I think. I'm not sure. That's close though.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Race, are you okay with those additions?
I certainly am, sir.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, Council, we have a motion on the floor that's been updated with clarity. Anything further, Council? And that's the correct spelling, correct? Council, anything further? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council accept the information package number 2 and direct administration to contact Mr. Keith Obrigowicz that council will not be taking any action on this. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Anything further for information package? Councilor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on that last direction, I don't believe that is the correct spelling. I don't think it needs to be called the question again. It's just if admin can just double check that and make sure that they've got the spelling correct.
Thank you for catching that, Councilor Stashik. Council, anything further? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our reporting for this evening, and I'll start on my right with Councilor Taylor.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Race.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I do have a little bit to report. I attended a ASH meeting on Sunday. Everything's doing well with them. I think a lot of you may have noticed via Facebook that one of their seats in the theater suffered some damage. So upon noticing that, they checked the seat. The seat was missing all the screws, all the nuts, and nowhere to be found. So they then fixed that seat, and then they went and checked all 158 seats. And they found another one with the nuts loose, but they fixed it. They found 20 that were questionable. So they did the whole work. So good for them. Something that they want me to thank administration and council for is, back in the last term, they were given $25,000 to renovate the concession. And the concession renovation is complete, and they said it has just made such a difference for them working in the concession. So that's number one. On Monday, I attended my first Pulp public advisory session, and it was absolutely awesome, awesome. And I wish I could find my notes here. Darn it. Okay, here we go. So, and I hope I have this correct. The mill right now is kind of operating on half production. They're not getting the rail cars that they normally would get due to the, you know, what's happening in BC and the weather that we're experiencing right now. So the reason we have all that wood in that yard is because of that. Another thing that's good to know is that our ambient air quality has actually improved in our Hinton area, and I think that's super. I found that meeting so interesting. I was able to learn about, we have one sensor, I believe we're getting another sensor. They talked about, you know, when gases are prevalent, you know, throughout the year, throughout the week, throughout the day. It was just a extremely interesting meeting. Made me wish I was 50 years younger and I could go back to school and learn a whole bunch more. No, truly, it was just great. Wonderful people there. Thursday, I have a youth advisory meeting, and that's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Race. Councilor Taylor, did you have a question?
Did they mention why the air quality was better? What's the rationale for that?
You know what? I probably did not do a follow-up when he said
Okay,
that,
no problem.
but I can certainly phone. I do have some new best friends there now,
Thanks.
so I can call.
Yes. Thank you, Councilor Taylor and Councilor Race. Councilor LaBerge.
Well, I guess for me, being the true rookie on council here, that was my first budget session, and I'd just like to thank administration. The amount of work was apparent with the reams and reams of documentation background that we got, and to Councilor Boone, tough job. There was a lot of stuff to get through. I think you did a great job getting us through there this weekend. Earlier on in the week, I attended my first investment review committee for community futures. Again, I go back to it, and the quality of the organization is always apparent. It was well done. Everybody was well prepared. I was involved in approving, I guess, my first loan in that capacity, and it was a good one, I think. And in that regard, on January 27th, that's the date of the board meeting for community futures, and there is an open invitation for all of council and administration to attend and see what they do on a regular basis. And last night I was supposed to sit in on the Valley Business Owners meeting, and like all of the rest of you, I had a snow emergency, so I wasn't able to make it. So.
Thank you, Councilor LaBerge. Councilor Ostache.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple things. Just in relation to what Councilor LaBerge had just mentioned, we did receive a request from Nancy Robbins regarding the invitation that was previously extended by Community Futures West Yellowhead for council to attend the next board meeting. So I did forward that original email request back to council again. So if anybody on council or administration is interested in coming to that board meeting, sorry, I shouldn't say anybody on administration. I believe the chief administrative officer and council were invited. So if anybody's interested in attending that, just shoot an email back to Miss Robbins and let her know that you'll be in attendance. And I look forward to seeing you there if you can make it. Other than that, last week on January 12th, we had a Beaver Boardwalk Citizen Oversight Committee meeting. Quite a few housekeeping things. Outside the housekeeping things, though, there was quite an involved discussion around the Maxwell Lake rehabilitation tender, which went out on Friday of last week, Friday the 14th. So the committee was discussing that and some options for what the committee could do to collect recommendations and feedback to forward on to administration so that that can be brought back to council when administration presents the Maxwell Lake Bridge rehabilitation tenders and information to council for decision. We did have, well, that brings me to a question actually to administration. A few weeks ago, the question was asked about the March 22nd scheduled agenda item for the Maxwell Lake Bridge rehabilitation item coming back to council. And the question was asked what exactly is going to be presented, and it was communicated that it was going to be information about the tender and some recommendations to council on what potentially should and shouldn't be included as part of that. At the Citizens Oversight Committee meeting, it was communicated to the committee that that has been moved ahead a month, that that's going to be presented to council on February 22nd now, not March 22nd. I just wanted to look to administration quickly for confirmation if that is in fact coming on February 22nd.
Administration.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Through to Councillor Stashik. I see Ms. Weber has jumped on, so I'm trusting she has the clear, most succinct answer to that question. Ms. Weber, please. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Howard, through to the chair, to Councillor Stashik. My understanding from the capital planning project manager is that it will be coming before council on February 8th. And for the committee of the whole discussion, and then to the regular March 1st regular meeting.
Councillor Stashik.
So that does present a little bit of a concern, obviously, on behalf of the Citizen Oversight Committee, and the fact that our next meeting isn't until February 9th, and the intent of the February 9th meeting was to discuss the contents of the tender document and be able to generate recommendations and some feedback to give to administration so that administration could use that to help inform council's discussion when that does get presented to council. So obviously it's problematic if that's intended to come to council, that committee of the whole, the day before the Citizen Oversight Committee meeting happens. I'm not sure what to do to follow up with that, but I think it's important to the committee that their feedback is included in part of the information that comes back to council.
Administration, any comments on that?
Thank you, through to the chair. I would like to refer to Mr. Russo for comment.
Mr. Russo.
Yes, good evening, council. My understanding is that the reason why the capital manager has extended the tender ahead of it coming back to council was because there was a concern about getting the prices in, as well as making sure that any edits that comes from council's comments at the time could then be included in the tender document as an addendum to meet certain dates, as well as making sure that AEP has certain stipulations what the winter construction is in terms of how the permit will be issued. So at this point, we don't have a permit yet. I believe the question was asked to AEP, when will we receive our permit? That wasn't definitive either. So I believe that the project manager wanted to ensure that we're on a parallel process. It is not a slam dunk that once the tender comes in that we cannot alter that. There's still time for council's input so that we can put an addendum to the tender process. So that was the thinking and the rationale from the capital project manager at the time when that tender was triggered to go to the open market, so that we can make sure that winter works indeed can be undertaken should we get the permit approved within the winter period of 2022.
Councillor Stashik.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up. And I mean, like I said, it's obviously important to the committee. It took up a pretty big chunk of our meeting the other day that they do have the opportunity to provide some feedback to council regarding that when it comes back to council at committee of the whole. So I guess what I'd like to ask then, I was aware that it was going to come for March 1st for decision, but it was going to come to committee of the whole prior to that. My understanding was it was the February 22nd committee of the whole meeting. Now we're hearing, though, it might be the February 8th meeting. Is there any risk or harm that could be done in having that come on the February 22nd committee of the whole meeting rather than the February 8th committee of the whole meeting? That, to me, that it could still come March 1st for decision, but that allows, though it's a tight window, it was actually tighter than the committee was comfortable with, but it does provide a window that they can collect information, feedback, and forward that to administration so it can be included in that presentation.
Mr. Russo or administration, any comments on that? And if not, if I can suggest perhaps Councillor Stashik and administration can maybe communicate and kind of work out the timelines and then follow back with the agenda prep committee in order to properly place that meeting, because I think I share the same concern. I see some head nodding that that's input that we should ideally have from the committee. So let's work out the logistics perhaps offline, unless Mr. Russo, do you have an answer you'd like to provide on top of that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to the chair, to council as well. I don't have any specific comment. I think the comment that I would offer is that if it does come to a later date, as Councillor Stashik has commented on, that can be done. One of the other options we could do, and just as a bold statement, we could, if council is uncomfortable that it's already to the open market, it's not unconventional to withdraw the tender from APC and to let those that have taken the tender document to date on APC to advise that it will be coming forward in a later date. That's another option, as I'm just thinking on the go forward, because the tender package has been ready, the design is done. I'm just thinking if that's a comfort level for council, that we could do that as well. But to the question on the floor, we could have it at a later date. It just makes it very tight between the committee of the whole to when we make the decision at the regular council in March.
Councillor Magoon?
Yeah, the idea of looking at a tender certainly doesn't bother me. However, Councillor Stashik hit the issue right on the head, is that this is a pre-election issue, was, ensuring that we have an appropriate level of involvement with this board and giving them some real say into, advising council on the matters of this area. I'm simply looking for another solution as well. I would argue that we could also consider asking that board for a special meeting to consider the information if it arrives at an earlier date, to give them a little bit more time to flesh it out. That could be an option, but I also like the mayor's suggestion of having Councillor Stashik collaborate with administration and forming the agenda prep committee onto any potential shifts. Again, I just think we really need to make sure that we're delicate and we give that committee the appropriate input that they deserve and the respect that they deserve.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. So if there's nothing further, administration, if you could just follow up with Councillor Stashik and then with the committee, and we'll figure out the logistics of what those options are. And if there's something that we have to do between then and now, then we can deal with it at our next council meeting if there's different direction that would be needed. But good dialogue, and better to deal with this now than 2-3 weeks from now. Anything further, Councillor Stashik?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Magoon?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, as well with the rest of my colleagues, enjoyed the budget sessions as much as one can enjoy a budget session. It was good. The process was new. It was definitely novel, and I thought it worked well. And like always, I appreciate the hard work of both administration and our contracted services to make that process go off, I think, very smoothly. The other thing I did last night was I attended my first Valley Business Owners meeting, which was great. I really appreciated it. What a great group of folks. Very invested in making sure that they're promoting that area, but also keeping their thoughts community based. So it was just, they may call themselves the Valley Business Owners, but they are community minded people, and it is just fantastic to see. I think they have some cool things coming in the spring, but it is not my place to sort of blow the lid off of anything, I'll let them bring it to you, but they're definitely making plans. So, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, nothing to report other than, yeah, I enjoyed the budget as well, and that we have a youth council meeting on Thursday, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Not much to add. Obviously, great budget. I actually enjoyed it. Not even, considering that usually they're not enjoyable. I actually really enjoyed it. So that was very beneficial and really happy feeling. Unfortunately, I was supposed to meet based on a previous motion of council with Paul DeJulio at West Fraser, but he unfortunately had to cancel last minute, and we're rebooking that, so I'll have an update with council once we meet with West Fraser, and that's all for me. That'll bring us to urgent matters. Oh, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I forgot I had an item.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Hinton Mountain Bike Club, a couple of people on the board called me after the budget session, I guess because one of them knows me quite well. And after we talked a bit, their concern was that they got their agreement done later on in the year, and they would have preferred their agreement done earlier on in the year. So I took the liberty of giving them my interpretation of what council said during the budget session, which was that our preference is to get those kind of agreements sorted out, and probably even administration's preference earlier, like in September, so we have more time to and don't do it as close to the budget session as we did. So.
Thank you for that, Councillor Taylor. Council, any urgent matters this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Howard.
I have nothing from administration. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Any administrative inquiries tonight? Any notices of motion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session with a 5-minute break. Councilor LaBerge.
I move that we go into closed session with a 5-minute break.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor LaBerge. All those in favor?
Earth.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to reconvene this meeting at 6:55. Councilor Magoon.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Jen, I'll just wait till you're ready. Just let me know. I'd like to make a motion that council direct the mayor to sign the interim CAO contract as per discussions in closed session. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call it to question. All those in favor? It's passed unanimously. Councilor Hawes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, please. Jen? The council appoint Mr. Paul Hanlon, Hanlan, thank you, as interim CAO of the town of Hinton, effective January 19th, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. I'd like to speak to this one. I want to thank everyone who put their names forward for this position. I want to congratulate Mr. Paul Hanlon on it, but I also want to take a moment and thank CEO Howard for bridging that gap and getting us to where we are today, which was a daunting situation months ago. So thank you, CEO Howard, for your services in stepping up for the community and helping us get to today. So a big thank you for everything you've done. And with that, council, any further debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council appoint Mr. Paul Hanlon as interim CAO of the town of Hinton effective January 19th, 2022. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, anything further tonight? If not, Councilor LeBerge.
Just a quick question, like is there a release coming out? Just because I know that people are gonna be asking, wondering, is that something that's been prepared?
So Miss Hope reached out to me and she has something that's going out tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So that'll be, she said close to 8 a.m. that'll be going out. Council, anything further? Councilor Stashik?
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. Council, seeing no one, all those in favor? That's it. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.